Right now, you have a word for it. Grief. Just 5 small letters. And you learned them young. And you can text it, post it, write it on a card. So the feeling has a name now, a shape, even a section in the bookstore. But for almost all of human history, that word did not exist. No card to send, no name to reach for in the dark. And the feeling came anyway, exactly the way it comes for you. The words are new, the ache is not, and your ancestors carried it without a single name for it. And your body still remembers. So how far back does it go? Well, further than farming, further than cities, than writing, than any god anyone has ever named. And the oldest graves clearly dug on purpose are about 0 years old. Now, in 1988, the French scientist Hélène Valladas dated burnt stone from Qafzeh Cave in what is now Israel, and the bodies laid to rest. There turned out to be roughly that old. So people were being buried with care 100,000 years ago. Hold that number for a second. That is before language, as you would even know it. Before the first painted wall. Before anyone could say the words out loud and have them land the way they land for you. The grave came first, and the words came late. So how do you mourn something you cannot yet name? So start at Qafzeh, in what is now northern Israel. Because the bodies there were not simply dropped into the ground. They were arranged, curled onto one side, knees drawn up toward the chest, just the way you still sleep on a cold night. And one young person was buried with the antlers of a wild deer laid across the arms, held close to the body, and scattered through the graves. Archaeologists counted 71 separate pieces of red ochre, a pigment ground from iron-rich earth, and carried into the cave from somewhere else. Now, ochre does nothing for a corpse. It does not preserve it. It does not feed it. But it is the color of blood, the color of the inside of a living body, and someone chose to bring it to the dead and press it into the ground around them. And a short walk away, at a cave called Skull, the dead were laid out the same way, just as old. They had no word for goodbye. So they used their hands instead. And here's the part nobody talks about. It was not only your own kind who did this. So in a cave called Shanidar, high in the mountains of what is now northern Iraq, a team led by the archaeologist Ralph Selecki lifted at least 10 Neanderthals out of the floor across the 1950s and 60s. And one of them was an old man. He had a withered arm, a healed, crushed eye socket, damage that would have left him half blind and barely able to use one side of his body, and he had lived like that for years. Someone fed him, someone kept him warm, so he did not survive alone. A Neanderthal group looked at a man who could no longer hunt, and they kept him anyway. Now, around another body, Selecki's team found thick clumps of pollen, and in 1975 he argued they were flowers, laid on the grave like a bouquet, and the idea was lovely. For decades, it changed how the whole world pictured Neanderthals. But then the science got revised. When researchers returned after 2015, a team including Chris Hunt looked again at that pollen and found it came from flowers that bloom months apart, in different seasons. Flowers nobody could have gathered on a single day. So the likeliest gardener was a burrowing bee, not a mourner. Even the romance got revised. But the part that survived the revision is the part that matters. A second Neanderthal nearby had been placed in a channel deliberately dug deeper, in a cave used for the dead over and over. Flowers or no flowers, someone dug deeper than they had to. Now think about what that costs. There is no shovel. The ground is packed and cold and full of stone, and you're digging with sticks, with stone flakes, with your bare hands, while the body of someone you knew lies beside you, going stiff. It takes hours. It takes the whole group, pausing the endless work of staying alive, just to put one person who can no longer help anyone into the earth with care. Now, nothing about survival requires that, but they did it anyway. So how old is this thing in you? Well, There is a cave in South Africa called Rising Star, and deep inside it, down a vertical chute barely wide enough for a human body, a scientist named Lee Berger and his team found the bones of a creature called Homo naledi. Naledi was not like you. Its brain was roughly a third the size of yours, closer to a chimpanzee's than to a modern human's. But at least 15 of these bodies ended up in a chamber almost impossible to reach by accident, with no sign that water washed them in or predators dragged them there. So Berger argues that Naledi carried its own dead into the dark on purpose, maybe 250, 0 years ago. Now, this is not an exaggeration, and it is not settled either. Plenty of scientists think the evidence is far too thin, and the fight over it is still loud. But sit with this for a second. A creature with a brain, a third the size of yours, may have refused to leave its dead behind. The instinct could be older than the skull, and it reaches past humans entirely. From the elephant's perspective, a death does not end when the breathing stops. So in Amboseli, in southern Kenya, researchers have watched whole herds go still around a dying matriarch, crowd close as she falls, and refuse to leave the body for hours. And the anthropologist Barbara King collected case after case like this in her 2013 book on how animals grieve, and the elephants are the clearest of all. They return to the bones months later. They lift them, turn them over slowly with their trunks, run the tip along the curves, and come back to the same spot year after year. And there was a gorilla in a zoo whose mate of many years died. He tried to wake her. He brought her celery, her favorite food, and laid it down beside her body. But it did not work. No language, no funeral, no word for death anywhere in his head. Just a body that could not accept the silence, doing the only thing it knew how to do. And grief is not a sign of how smart you are. It is older than that. And here's where it stops being history and starts being you, because everything those bodies did, you still do. When the worst news lands, the first thing that leaves you is words, silence, and you feel the pull to stay near the person, to sit with them, to not let the body be alone in the room. Your hands go looking for a task, any task, a blanket to straighten, a chair to move, something to carry, and your body remembers something your mind forgot. The going quiet, the staying close, the reaching out with empty hands. They are the same old program your ancestors ran 100,000 years ago, still playing in a brain that no longer needs a word to feel the loss. It wasn't a belief that started this. It was just a body doing what bodies do. So here is the answer, as close as anyone can give it. Ancient humans grieved before they had words the same way you grieve in the first minutes before words come back to you. With the body, with the hands, with the refusal to walk away, and the ochre pressed into the ground at Qafzeh, the deepened grave at Shanidar, the elephant standing watch over the bones. None of it needed a vocabulary, so the feeling built the ritual first. And the words came along much later to describe what the body was already doing. For 100,000 years, grief had no name, and people grieved all the same. Then a word arrived, and the word made it easy to believe the feeling was invented alongside it, that mourning is something civilization taught you. But it wasn't. You were carrying it long before you could ever spell it, and every person you have lost is still in there. In the part of you that goes silent and reaches out with empty hands. You carry them with you everywhere. You just stopped looking.